Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to our ranking episode of the Infinity War saga with the boy Connor.
Hello.
And Benny.
Hi there.
Now that Spider-Man Far From Home is out, folks, we thought it was about time to rank these 23 movies that we've had since 2008. What a run it's been. And now it's time for us to rank them out. We've developed a bit of a system here because there are three individuals who have their own select lists. Benny, do you want to explain the process for how we've built this amazing foolproof list?
Absolutely. It's very technical, a lot of very
Algorithms.
simple primary school level mathematics.
AI.
So I won't get too far into it. I don't want to alienate anyone. But basically we each just submitted our own ranking of 1 to 23, the MCU, and I just assigned a point amount to each movie and collated it. Simple as that, came up with one unified list for all of us that I think will probably disappoint each of us in a lot of ways as we go, and you folks out there too.
Yeah.
But, what is this if not an excuse to have a great argument?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And before we jump into the actual ranking, I just want to make one quick caveat that I think that we'll all echo, which is that pretty much all these movies, maybe with the exception of like two, are all movies that if someone came to me and was like, "I'm going to watch an MCU film, blah. Do you want to watch it?" I'd be like, "Fuck yeah!" Like I enjoy all of these films. It's just to what degree I enjoy them. And like I said, there's only probably about two that I wouldn't bother putting on or that I don't really feel like I want to revisit. But any of these films, I'm always happy to watch again, and I get a kick out of them all.
And speaking of films that we wouldn't want to chuck on, let's start at number 23 with our unanimously agreed upon last in the list, The Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton, directed by Louis Leterrier.
Norton. I've got a confession.
Yep. Oh, no.
I didn't see this. I didn't watch this.
Son of a bitch, you had one job.
I know.
What?
I didn't watch it. I'm really angry with myself.
I was so excited to hear your thoughts on it because I'm assuming neither of us have seen this in a long time.
It has been a while, I'll be honest.
I am really sorry to start a rankings episode with I didn't watch it. Like
You were like, I
That
hope the other
is-
guys rated it a lot higher.
Yeah. Like, not to say that this movie ever had any chance of not being in the bottom spot.
Well, that
but-
was the thing. I was like, do I watch The Incredible Hulk or Mother? Well,
I mean, I think that you should have, no, we're not doing a podcast on Mother. You should have definitely done it on.
I should have. I ran out of time, and I'm sorry.
Well,
but you know what? Part of me wants to leave this mystery. Is this one to go to the grave on?
No, you got to finish the Infinity
Quite
Saga.
possibly.
I don't know about this. Connor, let's have a conversation about it since we've seen the film.
Okay.
Was there any moment that this was not your 23rd ranked film? There was not for me.
Probably-
Not a second.
No. Look,
Yeah.
I'm trying to give it its due. Like the only thing that made me question whether it actually belonged in the bottom spot is this is probably the only film that I haven't revisited in the last couple years. So it's this film that I haven't watched in a while, and it is widely regarded as one of the, if not the worst MCU film. So you got all this kind of reinforcement from the
media.
the media or just kind of MCU fans in large that this is the worst one. And so I was really trying to think about if there was a movie that I would have rather not seen. And there's definitely movies that I'm more disappointed in,
Of course.
but I don't think there's any other films that felt more average or less of an event.
Yeah, I would say this movie doesn't even get name checked as the worst in the MCU very often at all because no one even remembers it or cares about it. I think a lot of people probably forget it is part of the MCU, even though Robert Downey Jr. is in it. And interestingly, I feel like it stands alone with one other film being Iron Man as the only two movies in the whole thing that really do feel standalone and they don't have that flavor of the MCU necessarily.
Yeah.
The only difference being that this one isn't very good.
And this was retrofitted into the MCU. Like it was
No doubt.
Like the concept of the film was it's a standalone thing, and then hey, Downey Jr. coming for a scene.
Reference here or there.
And I think the other thing about this is that if you look at the Phase 1 films, if you look at Iron Man, if you look at Thor, if you look at Captain America, these are all films that I would have probably never guessed if you told me like we're gonna bring in some Marvel characters. Those three are not widely. Sorry, guys. Fuck. I'm sorry. Those are ones that wouldn't come to mind, but the Hulk is one that not only is probably a little bit more well known, but is also a property that we had gotten a couple years before.
Yeah, Ang
was
Lee's
it
Hulk.
Was it an entire 5 years before?
2003 and then 2008, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wow. But I mean, like within the last 5 years, we had already had a Hulk film. So this,
And what a Hulk film it was.
I would say a better one.
Yes.
Without question.
Even though I haven't seen.
But that being said, in regards to this actual film, it has certain strengths to it. A lot of it's very much a reaction to the previous one, which was a much more cerebral thing. And this one's going to be the Hulk and Abomination just tearing up Harlem.
Yeah.
And it sure enough does have a third act that is nothing but that. Watching clips on it more recently on YouTube, the Hulk himself has not stood the test of time well whatsoever. I think it's a terrible effect in almost every way that it's executed. I think the 2003 one looks a lot better, and I say that having compared them pretty closely. And not to mention the one from Avengers onwards, which looks brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think most people would happily just expunge this from the MCU, and I wouldn't begrudge them that at all.
Yeah. Bye, Hulky.
Sorry, Hulk.
It doesn't fit in aesthetically. It barely fits in, with the continuity.
Yeah.
So.
Particularly like what happened to Mark Ruffalo's face. Like, something happened there.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
So, guys, spoilers. I've seen every other movie on this list now.
Okay, good. Here's one that I bet you wish you hadn't. Number 22, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Whoa, 22.
This movie got hammered by our lists. You guys had it
mine was second
way
last.
down.
Yeah.
Mine was pretty far as well.
Where did you have yours? Just out of interest?
I'm not sure exactly. Back third,
Back half.
definitely.
You had it at 20, so 2 spots ahead.
Cool. So no one was particularly happy with this film, I guess.
Yeah, this one was something that I really struggled with this one, because this one for me was equal parts. I didn't think it was a good film, but it was also a massive disappointment coming off the back of not only the back of Ant-Man, but also in terms of release cycle, right off the back of Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I've got to say, is that's not a good space to be.
That's a hard act
that's
to follow.
a
It's two
lot
hard
of
acts to follow.
expectation. Yeah, exactly. And this movie just seemed so flat.
And yeah, it makes me sad because I was quite looking forward to The Wasp. Like, I love Ant-Man. It's a lot further up my list. And I was kind of excited to see more of this character. I like that stripped back, not sort of congested with heaps of characters vibe. And then to get, this was the first female superhero in the title, correct?
In the title, yeah.
So to get that as the first off the rank and have it not really be as great as the first and kind of be pretty disappointing, that was felt like a missed opportunity. So yeah, man, it was a bit of a bummer, but I've only seen it once and I'd like to see it again.
I think you should, because I was definitely, I agree that it was a little flat for some reason, and I was definitely disappointed by it after having a much higher than average opinion of the first Ant-Man. But there are definitely elements I really liked. I really liked the villain, Ghost.
I was just about to say how I
yeah.
didn't like the villain.
That's
Sorry.
there's just something about her. I like.
I liked her look.
Yeah,
and like the
that,
suit and
I think she's a more complex character than some of these villains generally are. And would even.
See, I can't
her
remember.
as a villain would rank a lot higher than this movie if we were just ranking villains relative to each other. I think
we should do that.
Yeah, we should, because that would be a boring conversation for a lot of it.
I think that'd be, because I think that we could probably get, like, if you just looked at villains and ignored the movie, you could probably get some very interesting things happening.
Yeah, because I just like what they did with her in this, made her not just a straight up villain who dies at the end. It feels like a character that we could revisit again in some way. But yeah, not too much else to love about the movie.
I know what you mean about her character at the ending, but I felt like in everything leading up there, like there was just no explanation, but exploration about who that character was. that kind of just felt like a sort of like a mystery box type thing. And I was like, that's just it's a cheap way to make it like I say interesting in commas at the end.
I did continue to love Scott in this movie. I think they did a great job of continuing his development.
But we'd seen him in Civil War, and then we got him in Endgame this year.
Yeah, totally. But we barely got him in Endgame. No, what I really loved about him in Ant-Man and the Wasp was just this was a superhero, a title superhero character who was interested in close-up magic and was crying while reading The Fault in Our Stars. And I'm like, I fucking love that. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Just it felt a bit different.
Yeah. I mean, I wish it. I really want to revisit it because it could jump up in my list. And I think just something quickly to acknowledge here is my list, and I think these lists in general, I think the top half is quite solid. You know, there's a couple spots in here where they're interchangeable and the list is fluid, and I revisit this film and it kind of, oh wow, that's actually I've developed a new appreciation for it. So this list is where I'm at, and I think all of us are at on the 6th of August 2019.
Yeah. I had a lot of trouble with this list because I feel like a big chunk of the midsection I could probably toss on its head and it wouldn't look too weird to me.
It's very much in tiers. We pretty much unanimously agreed on the bottom of this list.
And the top.
And the top and the middle's kind of a whole other thing. So next up, number 21 is one of the 3 movies that is cited as the worst in the MCU most often. I'm going to say one of 4, actually, and I'll tell you what the others are later when they come around. But we put at number 21, Iron Man 2.
This was my 22.
So pretty far down.
Mine was a little bit higher, actually.
Why is Iron Man 2 considered so low down in not only our lists, but everyone's list? Like, is it because of how overbloated it feels with them not really making an Iron Man film, but a setup film, unexplored or lackluster villains that had so much potential, but like it dies pretty fast at the end there. You still have some really cool stuff in here with War Machine getting recast, Don Cheadle, like he's a great asset to the MCU.
I really think this movie has gotten a lot better with age because it was seen as such a huge disappointment when it came out, following up the unanimously loved Iron Man. And I in a lot of ways prefer it.
Wow.
It feels so much like the first MCU film because it really is setting up so much of the universe, which at the time, I can see why that was alienating to people because they're like, I'm here to watch an Iron Man movie. What the hell is all this?
Gotcha.
But once you've seen everything that comes after it, you're like, they were doing some good kind of groundwork.
Yeah.
And some necessary groundwork because the next movies coming up after that were like Thor and Captain America. So that's some pretty disparate things they're bringing in together before the Avengers. How did you feel about this movie, Connor?
Yeah, I did not have the same kind of reaction that I think everyone else had, which was a massive disappointment. I'm fairly lenient on MCU films in general because, like I said, I can pretty much put on any of these films and be happy with it.
And Disney pays us a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're shills. The 2 films that I probably would say no to if someone asked me to watch it are what we have as our bottom 2, which is the Hulk and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
But did you have that? Like, I just so distinctly remember coming out of Iron Man 2 and in 2010 and being disappointed.
No,
I was very happy.
Really?
I wasn't disappointed at all.
I remember being like, maybe disappointment's the wrong word. The word, I was weirded out. I remember feeling like that was weird.
I was ahead of the curve. I was just ready for the shared universe.
Yeah, I wasn't at all. And there was a couple of things that kind of did put a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Certain scenes that I just that I wish had been explained a little bit better. Obviously the villains held a lot of potential, but didn't really execute as well as they could have. But if that was my criteria for being disappointed in a Marvel film, then I would have a very different relationship with the MCU in general, right? Like, I mean, a lot of these villains are just the good guy, but in a different color. Look, I think I just kind of focused on the strengths of this film, I think,
I'll put it at number 21 on your list.
No, I had it higher.
Where did you have it?
19.
19.
2 spots higher. But again, this is the thing about these films is that pretty much anything 20 on, like pretty much anything here on is something that I would happily watch. Like I'm going to have fun with. It's just how much fun. So
this is a superhero movie with Sam Rockwell in it, so I can only dislike it so much. Next up at number 20, much more recent, we have Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah. So if you go back to our original review of Captain Marvel,
Best MCU movie
ever.
Yeah, which we recorded like an hour after we saw it at a preview screening.
And we were pumped.
We were surprisingly lenient on this film.
Yeah.
And I think that there, at least from one or two of us, comments about this is in my top 5 or 10. I think I ended up saying this is in my top 10. In Ben, you mentioned that. Well, that's half. I was like, well, okay. Fair enough.
I remember I thought like this is middle tier. You know,
that's what we said. I think I said upper middle tier.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about Captain Marvel that I quite like about it, and I give it a soft spot, is like the hybridization of that first Phase 1 MCU with the Guardians of the Galaxy vibe.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. And I'd like to revisit this film when the time's right. And I think I would enjoy it. It's just like there's a lot of noise around this film. It's kind of like Last Jedi. It's like it's sort of flip of a coin on how I'm feeling about it on any given day.
It's very distracting. I went to see it the day after we recorded our review again, I believe. Just kind of sat there the whole way through it like, this is all right. I don't really love much of this, eh?
But do you think also a big part of it was the fact that we were getting Endgame? Like, and it was like, ooh, you know, Captain Marvel's been hyped in Infinity War. Ooh, Endgame's coming. Ooh, we're going to find out about this character, and I want to find out about that character. I think there was a lot of intrigue and like getting those answers in that first review where we were kind of feeling a little bit satisfied. That probably pumped it up a little bit more.
I just think it was the fact that we had just seen it. There's always this period after watching a Marvel film where I'm just excited at having seen a Marvel film. Like, I mean, that's the effect that I get now, which is like, it's part of this overall universe. You know, I just kind of, I'm like, I kind of have a bit of a high afterwards. And then, you know, as obviously the position that it holds in our aggregate list will show you, we've all cooled on this film quite heavily since. And I had the exact same experience as you, Ben. When I went and rewatched it with my girlfriend, I was like, actually, to be honest, this movie just feels very middling.
If I had to remove a title character from the MCU, it would be Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
easily. And I hate to say that about such a controversial film, but
incel.
didn't do much for me.
Into the comment section.
Wouldn't that make it the? Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I can't keep track of the
reverse incel.
Sorry,
reverse.
Whatever that is.
Sorry, Cap. We'll see you again later down the list, probably. Number 19, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Ooh, I was surprised.
I was surprised to see how low we all rated this.
Yeah, particularly because I think I've defended it quite heavily against you two, actually. And I had this.
Then you had to do some soul searching.
I actually had this lower on my list than what the aggregate thing. It's all right.
Like what what criteria are you guys going on this list? Because in some ways, it's a lot of films, like if they're older, I'm sort of going, I'm giving them maybe a little bit more leniency, aka Iron Man. You know, how much impact did that have on comic book films and the MCU?
Iron Man is virtually the only one I've given that context to,
right?
Because that was the one that started it.
Yeah, because and then there's also like the merits of the film itself. Because I'm sort of taking a bit of a hybridized approach, but this one for me, when I was stacking them up, you know, I just kind of like kept copy pasting films above it. You know, I was like, this one's better, this one's better, this one's better. And if you were to sort of put these in front of me, I would go for all these films over that one. This is not necessarily a bad film, as we've already discussed, but it just didn't climb the rankings.
Yeah,
and that last action sequence with Ego, like I can't tell you how much that just meant nothing to me.
Yeah, for me this was very much this kind of weird exercise of what would me sitting down right now. Which movie do I want to watch the most? Which one do I think that I will have the most fun with, like right now? And that's pretty much exclusively how I did this. I didn't want to consider the context of, what this did for comic book movies or what this did for the MCU or what, none of that, or or at least from, Captain Marvel, the noise around it, going both ways. I didn't want to take that into consideration at all. I just wanted to think about right now, if I want to watch a film from the MCU, in my bedroom or in my living room, what am I going to watch? And that's how I ranked it.
This is just one of the movies on the list for me that I just have the most problems with. I don't like the direction it really went in. A lot of the execution I like James Gunn's style, but I just hated how much this movie bought its own hype. It was such a, tribute
you loved the first
to
one,
Guardians of the Galaxy one. Yeah. It was like, oh, look at all these callbacks to that movie you loved because it was the coolest movie. And it hurt the first movie for me, unfortunately. And there were just a lot of ego was so pumped up as like, it was during that era of like Marvel's that we're getting villains right now. We know we've got a villains problem. We're admitting it and we're doing it right. And I'm like, yeah, there was complexity to him. Kurt Russell is great. But he's still just another big CGI face in the end, doing CGI stuff. And then the weird threads of like Star-Lord getting superpowers and then losing superpowers, and it's like, what is all of this?
That was such a build-up in the first one of like, he's half human and half something really ancient. And you're like, fuck yeah, I wonder what that is. And then in 2, not only did they answer it, but they solved it. And you're like, oh, well, I guess that puts that.
It kind of put a dent in the Guardians of the Galaxy for me. I can't really tell you why, because there's so many great jokes in here.
Yeah.
Like Rocket scene with all the pirates.
Oh,
like,
I hate
people
it.
hate it.
I
love it. I love it. The opening sequence with them dancing and stuff. I think that's a cool little sequence.
That is amazing. The movie doesn't get better than that, though, which is bad.
I can't put my finger on why I don't really want to watch this. Even the Mary Poppins motherfucker, whatever that line was.
It's not that.
That's the way I want to see it.
Yeah.
Mary Poppins motherfucker. But I don't know. There's just something about Guardians of the Galaxy. You might have put your finger on it, man. It's just like it was sniffing its own ass too hard.
So the first one was able to blend the cynicism and the group of a-holes with sincerity so beautifully, especially with Rocket, who just had these little moments where you kind of got a glimpse into the tragedy there. And then the second one has like the scene where Kurt Russell and Star-Lord are playing catch with a little ball of energy, and it seems to be playing it straight. I'm like, is this a joke or not?
I definitely thought that they were like, yeah, I can see how that was misconstrued. I did like that scene because I just took it as they were taking the
couldn't
piss.
take it. And then you get the Ravager funeral at the end, which is stunningly beautiful visually, and it's playing Cat Stevens, Cats in the Cradle, which is so cliched. Like, yes, that moment works for me emotionally on some level, but there's still a bit in the back of my head that's like, really? This is the best you could do with the soundtrack? Like the most obvious father-son song in the world.
And the soundtrack was not nearly as strong.
Not nearly as surprising. Yeah. And it made me question like the first one. It's like, oh, were even these all that deep cut? Like,
I don't know, man. There's something about Cat Stevens when I hear that, man.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And that's what annoys me about it. Yeah, I'm like you are leaning on such a crutch here.
Yeah.
Do not use him. Anyway, that movie was a bit of a bummer, unfortunately, but there is a lot I like about it. Next up at number 18. Okay, so we've left the kind of bottom of the barrel ones here. We're jumping up quite a lot in points suddenly.
There's one that's very clearly missing that is often included in that bottom 4, though.
Next up, number 18, we've got Thor, the first Thor.
Thor? Wow.
The first Thor. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys rated this higher than me, which is crazy because I'm the biggest Thor apologist out of all of us.
I really love Thor, man. Like, that movie, it has so many flaws. It looks cheap and plasticky, but that's something about it that I wonder if it's just like nostalgia for that phase 1 and when I first saw it.
I'm going to spend a lot of time saying the things I love about this movie. One of the things that hurts it so bad and it's so ridiculous is the eyebrows. It's Thor's dyed eyebrows.
You were about to mention things that you loved about it.
No, because I just want to say the thing that really holds it back for me and why it doesn't feel a piece of the MCU. Because Thor has these dyed blonde eyebrows that make it look like a different character. He looks like Hulk Hogan. And I'm just like, I can't. I don't. It looks terrible. He looks cool. Shut up, you new metal loving motherfucker.
Cool man.
Honestly, do you know what one of the weirdest things is though? I never noticed the eyebrows. So many people complained about the eyebrows, and it didn't.
Really?
I remember when he
register for
showed
me.
up in Avengers, and I was like, "Damn, Thor's looking cool."
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a dickhead.
No,
Just
I
look like
never
a
noticed it.
California bro.
For me, there are two distinctive things that made me just a little bit etchy with this film, and that was the plasticky look of everything. It just looked cheap.
What do you mean that wasn't real gold everywhere?
But I mean, like,
no,
there's
I
a-
completely agree.
and
the score.
Yeah, the score.
Yeah.
I know. Ben is ready to put a bullet in his head if I mention Thor's score again.
So, well, just because I've heard it so many times, I believe
Yeah.
I can get the
Yeah,
point
by all
across.
means, yeah.
You think it's very at odds with the tone of what's happening, right? It's
At certain moments, there is the storyline takes a very serious turn, and I just felt like the music missed the mark.
Mm.
Yeah, it really put. I remember watching it, and there were a couple of times where I was kind of looking around to see if everyone else was as weirded out as I was with how the score was going in conjunction with, or in contrast with what was going on screen. I was just like, "Fuck!" I'm like, is it just me or is this weird?
So looking back at this movie now in the larger context, it's a very bizarre one because it is very small scale, especially for something that is the first cosmic entry into the MCU.
Yeah.
It's Thor in a dinky little desert town, and he fights a metal suit at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes to the other place.
He fights some frost giants. Possibly, it's very dark, and this was a 3D
There's
movie
a
at the
lot
time.
of green screen.
Yeah. What this movie does great is the character work with Loki was, I think, the best stuff the MCU had done for me up to that point. I went to see this movie 3 times in probably as many days when it came out because something about that character just entranced me. I was like, this is amazing. The MCU can do this.
Lifelong love. Of
Yes,
Tom Hiddleston
absolutely.
was born.
Yeah.
But there's also like okay, so at this stage in the MCU, we'd had a lot of tech-based stuff. And this was them taking a leap of faith and getting a bit more cosmic, magical.
Yeah.
Like this, the odds were stacked against them, and I will always tip my hat to this one because it could have been a disaster. It could have derailed this whole MCU, and they figured out a way to make the tech work with the magic and the space to the point where it's rolled out to where we've got Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Eternals coming up and all that good stuff. The only other thing I'll say about Thor, Dutch angles.
You kind of need to have a lot of Dutch angles when you're getting Natalie Portman to kiss Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
They're about 4 feet different in height. So
It wasn't actually Dutch angles. It was literally the floor was sloped like that just to.
Now, Kenneth, why don't we do the whole movie in Dutch angles?
It's very notably from a
Who's
different
talking
era.
to Kenneth?
Kenneth is talking to himself. He's looking in the mirror.
Imagining that. just-
Tell me, Kenneth. He speaks of himself in the first person.
Yeah, it's just
It's
Kenneth
so-
talking to himself in
Third
the mirror.
person, sorry, third person.
Brana.
It's so noticeably from a different era because I believe, to my knowledge, this is the only MCU film with a racist joke in it, which is one of the cops towards the end calls Hogan Jackie Chan, and it feels so out of place in the homogeneously family friendly PC MCU as it is today. Which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm not saying more racist jokes in MCU movies, but it really jumps out.
I never really thought that was. You mentioned that last time we watched
Because
it.
he calls the other guys Robin Hood and Xena Warrior Princess. Jackie
Yeah.
Chan isn't like some period character. He just happens to be another Asian person.
Yeah, like
Don't
I mean, when you
fight
explain it, yeah.
it on this guy.
I don't know.
Please.
It was just it's something
Don't
I had never
defend
noticed.
it.
Quite Jordan Peterson.
Oh boy. Next up, number 17. We've got a few here that are, the next 10 are very similar in points. We're not going up by huge increments. The next one up, number 17, is Iron Man, the one that started it all.
Yeah, mine's hovering around there.
Yeah.
Rewatched this one recently, and it was crazy how that's where it started it, man. And it's crazy how the scope is tiny.
Yeah.
Like compared to Thor even.
Yeah.
Can
you imagine-
it's tiny in scope?
If Obadiah Stane's character hadn't inexplicably gone crazy in the last 20 minutes of that film, there would be no huge action set piece or anything.
Yeah.
There'd be no need for it.
There's barely any action in it.
Yeah. That,
Which I love about this film. I actually had this film quite a bit higher on mine. I think this came in at 12 for me.
Wow.
wow, yeah.
I really enjoyed that. I remember going back to it recently. So about a year ago, I rewatched the entire MCU because my girlfriend had never seen
And you
most
did
of
the
these
dutiful
films.
thing.
Yeah, and this was before Black Panther came out, and we were like, we're gonna pump through, all of them. And I remember revisiting this one, being like, God, I really love the down to earth nature of this. I mean, it's about a flying robot, granted, but it's, compared to the kind of the cosmic scale that the MCU is at now, it was just, I found it so refreshing. So I'm always really happy to go back to those. And out of the 3 originals, I'd probably place Iron Man as my favorite. And the 3 originals, I mean, like Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. Mm-hmm. There's something I really love about the progression of this. Thor starts out with big action scenes. Captain America. I don't think actually that doesn't start out with a big action scene, does it?
A lot of character development.
A lot of character development, and it shows in my rankings. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I tend to really like Iron Man.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's not surprising that the movie captured audiences so thoroughly. It's all based on Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. Without that, there is not an entertaining movie here.
It's amazing how much more sophisticated we've gotten, and the comic book movie genre, how much, like, for lack of a better word, better it's become, because this feels dated to me. I think you saw it when you saw it recently, Benny. You used the term from a different era.
It does feel like that.
It definitely feels like that. It's only 2008.
None of these heroes have strippers anymore. It definitely feels pre-Disney acquisition.
100%.
100%. Oh, that's right. Yeah,
in the plane.
Yeah, he was a playboy, and I like that we got that era that Tony Stark could be that before he kind of
makes so much more sense
a bit. Yeah, because it would have been weird getting a more kind of laid back Tony Stark character, and everyone's like, no, he's a bad dude. It's he seems pretty fine.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't seem that bad at all.
Yeah. That movie, in like a personal ranking, if I was reading it again right now, because it's probably already changed since I've done this. I think I prefer Iron Man 2, which
interesting
for whatever reason. Next up, number 16, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one.
Weirdly enough, I feel like this should be higher.
Yeah.
I didn't. Actually, I had this higher as well.
Yeah, mine's hovering around there, but this is one that's like the first time I saw it. I distinctly remember Guardians of the Galaxy being announced and it was coming out, and I was like, all right, I'm across Thor, I'm across Hulk, Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, what is this? This is uncharted territory. So it's kind of like a blank canvas, which was really, really nice. And in that first viewing, I really loved it. And every time I've watched it, it's just kind of gone down a little bit. But I still really enjoy this film. And the cast of characters is just that great to watch together.
It doesn't certainly hold the same allure that it did when it first came out. And part of that is precisely because of what you just talked about, which is that, this was such an unknown, and it was so good compared, like, from this unknown that you're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that they knocked it out of the park like that. There's like a novelty factor to it. Whereas, now, like, I still really enjoy chucking on Guardians of the Galaxy. Out of the 2, this is, easily better than number 2. I think I still really hold this a bit higher though.
Yeah, it's dropped a lot for me over the years because it, as probably the most just through and through comedy that we'd seen up to this point from Marvel, so much of the enjoyment is contingent on, you're in that first viewing, hearing these jokes for the first time, big audience, it's riotous, it's so much fun. And then the second time seeing it again, anticipating it and again have a new audience, it's also great. But then the more and more you watch it, you're sitting at home alone watching it, you're like, it's it just doesn't have that impact anymore. I will say that what is left beyond the humor, the emotional through lines, I think are really beautiful. I love the stuff with Peter and his mother. That gets me every time at the end when he's got the Power Stone running through him and he sees her and reaches out to her. And that score I think is amazing. One of the better kind of MCU themes. So I definitely still really like this movie a lot, but unfortunately it's lost a lot of the sheen over the years.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's the novelty has worn thin over time.
Even what you said, which is that there's something below the novelty of it, is what kind of brings it up for me, because I still find this movie very, very watchable.
Yeah, that prison scene is killer. I mean, I love that bit, and I will forever love that. So it's a middle of the pack MCU.
It's a bummer that
entry.
Gamora is kind of so thinly drawn in that movie.
The 2010s, mate.
Yeah.
Just savage times.
Thank God we fixed it. Next up, number 15. Now, this is the second of the 4 touted as the worst in the MCU most often, I would say. This is Thor: The Dark World.
Yep.
Way higher on our list. I'm proud.
Absolutely.
Because we rewatched.
And if you're angry about this, just wait.
Yeah, we rewatched this, relatively recently,
End of
within the last 2 years.
2017.
Yeah, and we even did I'm pretty sure we did a retro
Yeah.
review on it, and we were all kind of surprised, I think, by how much we enjoyed this film and how much we were all really impressed on like the visuals of this film. Like everything looks 10 times better than it did in the original Thor.
Yeah, this is number 13 on my list. So it's in that same area. But when we rewatched this, I was blown away, man, because I really didn't enjoy this in the
You didn't
cinema.
like it at all, yeah.
And then we got like the I think what really got me was the spaceship battle in Asgard. That's when I was like, whoa, man, like this is Star Wars. This
Yeah.
is killer. Bring it on. And the Dark Elves as well, that more sci-fi fantasy tinge that it gave to it really worked for me. And this is I'm surprised at how much of a punching bag this one is. And I can't quite figure out why.
Yeah, a lot of people
the
just seem
villain
to...
is often touted as the main failing.
What's wrong with Malekith the Accursed? A lot of people really, I think, when pushed, because a lot of people immediately do jump and say, oh, that's the worst. It was horrible. And then when pushed, or especially when they rewatch it, they're like, no, it's all right.
Yeah.
Or it
That's
was
the
average.
biggest thing, right?
And yeah, I don't know. That seems to really hurt.
Yeah.
hurt
If you can
people's-
ask someone what's actually bad about this, or what's really bad about the character, because again, if someone's going to say, "Oh, lackluster villain," then you're pretty much talking about the entire MCU. There's a lot of very lackluster villains in this.
It's not just the villain. I think Natalie Portman's character wasn't fully capitalized on. It's not fully realized. It's on a top 10 MCU film.
After that one, in relation to Natalie Portman, I was not distressed to hear that she was not back in the MCU. I was kind of like, after that, I was like, ugh,
it's done.
I can do without.
Yeah,
which is why I was so lackluster when she was announced as the new, Thor or the new holder of Mjolnir. I was just kind of like, that it doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, if I wasn't kind of afraid of public backlash from even you two, I probably would have put this even higher on my list. I don't know why. I'm such a huge fan of this movie. Every time I watch it, I like it even more, which is nice when so many of these movies go the opposite direction.
Where was it on your list? Was it top 10?
No, close to, I think, 10 or 11, maybe. I find it to be one of the funniest MCU movies in terms of staying funny. For whatever reason, I think it's one of the best looking MCU movies. The way it was shot, so much of it really feels like they had sets and stuff, it just helps me so much get immersed in these worlds.
Have you read much about the director's experience and his?
Yeah, it sounded terrible.
Yeah, it's quite interesting about how great it was in production from his perspective, and then when it went into post production, that's when it all broke down.
Yeah, such a shame.
And he seemed to have a really good time on set, and he seemed to commend Marvel and said it was a really well-run show, and then it all fucked out.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Patty Jenkins also left this movie. She was originally on it.
Just to quickly mention, Ben, you did have it in your top 10. This is number 9 for you.
Number 9, hell yeah. Okay, I think I readjusted that earlier. I don't crucify me, but you out there. You guys already know this about me.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like you
I
said,
love
when you're really pressed to kind of bring any faults about this film, you can't say anything about this film that's particularly egregious that you probably couldn't say about most of the other films on the middle of this list.
And this movie, to someone who is already predisposed to Loki and the Loki-Thor relationship, is just a fucking dream.
Yeah.
Because it just really builds on that. They did reshoots to put more Loki in this movie, and I think it works brilliantly. I love his whole role in this. Thor's mother Frigga's funeral, I think, is one of the more touching moments in the entire series of films.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
I love the way they brought that theme back in Ragnarok and then her back in Endgame. It was really cool. I just like this movie. This was the first one written by Marcus and McFeely, I think.
Oh, for real?
Who are the longtime MCU
you mean
writers.
Marcus McFeely?
Marcus McFeely,
one
the one man Marcus
The
McFeely.
amalgamated,
Yes.
humanoid
one entity.
thing that is.
Final thing I'll say on this, I want to see more fantasy in the MCU. Like that's an untapped area. We've got a lot of stuff on
A lot of sci-fi.
sci-fi. But like, I'd love to see maybe more mysticism. Maybe Shang-Chi's going to bring some of that in.
Doctor Strange is hopefully going to do a bit of that.
And it's like straight fantasy. Dark elves, not in spaceships.
Yep.
Bring it on.
I'm into it. Next up at number 14, we have Captain America: The First Avenger.
Wow.
Now, I really threw you guys off on this one because I had this a lot higher.
Mine?
I knew that you'd have this really high,
And that's why you put it really low.
No, I just for me this
No.
For me this movie is I've adjusted it. I used to have it far lower on my list.
Like George.
Where is it now?
On my
15 or
list right
something?
now it's
I've compensated
17?
for you.
17, I
Yeah,
think.
mine's at 19.
Wow.
Yeah. It used to be probably around 19 or 20, or well, at the time it was, probably my least. It was probably second to Hulk. Just because I remember when I first watched it, I was just a little bit weirded out by it. There were a couple of lines that I just felt were so I didn't gel well with it. I also found the green screen it to be incredibly distracting in this film. This film felt really flat in terms of the visuals. But when I rewatched it, I've got to say I really appreciated how much time and effort they put into character development in this. That's kind of what pulled it off for me. That first 40 minutes or even 30 minutes of that film, I think, is what is really great.
Yeah, the strength,
pulling it off.
The greatest strength of the
I knew you were gonna
MCU for me has always been the characters. That's how they get us to keep coming back. And I think it'd be hard pressed to find one of these movies that does a better job at creating and introducing and defining a character than this movie. Even with just the moment of little skinny Steve jumping on that grenade is one of the best superhero moments for me in modern superhero movies. It's just touching, and it really conveys why this guy deserves to be a guy wearing the American flag, and we don't all laugh at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe gives him more earnestness.
Yeah.
I wish I could say the same thing. I watched this one not too long ago.
On a bus?
Sorry?
On a bus?
On a bus?
Did you watch it on a bus?
No.
You watched it on your phone?
No, I watched it at home.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I might have watched a little bit on the bus,
I'm
actually.
pretty sure that's what you said
Yeah.
last time, yeah.
I thought he was watching Civil War on the bus.
Maybe that
It's
too.
unacceptable.
Just love like mobile cinemas in public places. I don't know, man. Like this one, it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't quite come together for me. I'm not sure what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but it just feels very mundane and kind of plods along. And I never get this exhilaration from this film. It never kind of goes, oh, we're kicking in now. It's just like, oh, we're going through the motions. And then, we get a lot of montages where he's doing the rounds as Captain America. I want to love this movie, but I just don't.
So one of my few criticisms would be that I guess I don't like that they do have to rush through his wartime experience with that montage stuff. It feels like it's not the case, but it feels like he wasn't like a hero all that long. He just kind of became Captain America, not Frozen. But then you're like, oh no, there was that bit. Who knows how long that was actually meant to be?
Yeah.
But the strength of this movie. This is my number 4.
This is your number 4.
This is my number 4. I love the hell out of this movie. I didn't initially when I first saw it. I think I kind of liked it, and then it's just grown strength to strength every time I see it.
Do you know what really gets this film across the line for me? Is the scenes between Captain America and Stanley Tucci.
Yes,
those for me are
Dr. Erskine. He's brilliant. He's so good.
I mean,
see, I would say the same about Stanley Tucci and Tommy Lee Jones. And I absolutely love Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull as well. I think he's such a ridiculous,
he's awesome,
kind of cartoony Nazi villain.
Yeah.
I think he's so much fun. And it's a real shame he never came back to the role, and definitely never will. And then there's just the entire showstopper of an ending with Steve putting that plane down in the ice, which I can't even talk about without getting choked up.
that for me has always I think that emotionally, if you let yourself get carried away from it, it's really impactful. But there was always this little part of my head that thought, this doesn't just land the there was a lot of this that didn't make sense as to why he had to crash it, and I was always that always stopped me from really, I think, feeling the full impact of it.
Haven't you ever done something drastic to avoid a date?
that's the thing, right?
Oh no, sorry, can't hear you. Gotta go.
Because that's the joke that everyone people make jokes about it, and then but no one ever answers the question of couldn't if he just fucking landed or tried to land the plane? It was just he didn't even consider the idea. He was just no, I gotta go down.
It works.
Wait, World War II shit now.
It works as a character thing for me because he thinks that if there's even a chance that the weapons on that thing could go off, that there's not a second thought. He's like, I'm putting this in the ice where it's safe.
Yeah, I don't want to get
because he's the one. He's the one to make the sacrifice play. That's his whole deal.
Well, in a character way, it makes sense, but just in my head, and this is not the thing to do with Marvel movies. I know that you can't apply too much logic to them, but that just to me was just
I really want to do a re-edit where he's about to do it, and then we just cut to you grabbing his shoulder, no, Steve. You point over the side, and there's a runway.
He's like, no, man, I got to put it down. Be like,
allow me.
But runway. He's like, nah.
The thruster's working.
Yeah.
Fuel is healthy.
I've always felt like that there should have been just some other kind of pressing. I don't know.
The final thing I'll say about this is the only disappointment. I'm happy not liking this film. I've made my peace with that, but I want to like it because everyone gives so much of a fuck about Bucky. Everyone gives so much of a fuck about Hayley Atwell's character. I just don't ever feel like I've ever gotten my claws synced into those characters and never fallen in love with them. And I think if I did, I would enjoy the MCU even more than I do.
I forgot Bucky was even in this until you just mentioned it. He's not well served in this movie or in any movie, I think.
Oh, I'm glad you think that. I'm glad you think that because
he's not. He was nowhere near the reason I like that movie.
But I like Bucky as time goes on. But I just want that history and that impact where that relationship is formed to feel crucial, and it just doesn't.
Do you know one of the best lines that's come from Bucky in this entire MCU, and it probably a bit telling about how he hasn't been served that well. But that scene where he looks at Steve and he goes, your mom's name was something or other. You used to put newspaper in your shoes. For me, that says so much in such a short line, and that is both amazing and also really sad. That's the best line you can get out of Bucky.
Yeah.
Or when he falls.
Anyway, that one was one of our biggest disagreements.
If you fell, how would you do it? Just metal as you go down. Yeah. So
don't forget about that.
Keep the podcast going. All right, number 13, we have Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange.
Wow. Again, I had this a bit higher on my list, actually.
Yeah, interesting.
This movie I just remember when it came out, for some reason I remember a lot of people giving it quite a bit of flack.
This is one where every time I put it on, it's way better than I remember it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
But not because it's better than you thought it was last time you watched it, just because after you watched it, it went worse again. It always goes back to the same place and then back down.
I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I'm exactly the same. Because when I watched this movie, I'm like, I really like this movie.
We watched it one time. I think it was before Infinity War. I was like, fuck, that was killer.
I get a kick out of it every time. Yeah. I think that it's again, it adds that little bit of mysticism to it. It's that thing that you hint at with Thor. But yeah, I'm just very much.
And I think we've mentioned this a few times, how he's better explored as a character in Infinity War. My hope is that, the next version, that they can capitalize on that and make him even better, that elevates this film in the public, the perception.
I've always found that, a lot of these characters are often better served in either sequels or in in the ensemble pieces, films, just because they can play off other people, and I think that does quite a bit for the characters. I mean, the intro movies always have to have this kind of arc, and you sometimes feel as though it's a bit labored.
Well, when it's just Doctor Strange in a Doctor Strange movie, it's like, man, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
But when he's playing with a team of other people, that's an interesting dynamic. Because
Yeah.
you've got some little earnest Spider-Man and dumbass Star-Lord, and it's like, this is interesting. And, the other asshole, Tony Stark. But this movie, it's really probably the most disconnected to the MCU, the most disconnected feeling to the MCU.
Even with like timestamps and dates.
Yeah. Like you could easily remove whatever connections this actually has, which none are even coming to mind right now. But and it would just be its own random weird thing.
Yep.
And I also think it is in my mind. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you can think of anything else, but I would say this is the most visually flawless film in the MCU, just in terms of visual effects execution. It's not only perfect, but inventive in some
I
really
would say
cool ways.
inventiveness
Yeah.
and like creativeness. I would 100% agree with you. I think there's some parts with like the prism stuff in the latter half where they try and do the Inception Nolan thing, which is fucking awesome. It does get a little bit CGI, but that's fine. You know, it's not a
I
big
was okay
issue.
with that. There's a couple of scenes where they try to animate Doctor Strange from memory that I thought were a bit wonky, little bit.
But it's definitely the most creative.
Most creative,
Pushing the envelope.
execution-wise, I still think is Infinity War in terms of looking like a flawless film.
That was the only other
Probably.
one that was coming to mind
Yeah,
for me.
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
Black
this
Panther.
is one that I don't understand why it's such a punching bag, and I hope that the Doctor Strange continues to go up.
It's funny how our recollections differ, because all I remember about this is everyone just raving about how great it looks and how it's like a step in a new direction for Marvel.
I don't know. I had a weird I had a lot of people saying I remember there being two camps and they were very loud, and one was like, oh, this is the most wild MCU film, but there was another really strong camp that was like, this is garbage. I distinctly remember a lot of people hating this film, and I felt weird because I was like, I actually really enjoyed this.
Also, people complain so much about Malekith the Accursed. Mads Mikkelsen in this movie is more wasted than any actor in
that's right.
any
He's in it.
superhero movie.
I just in my head I was like, oh, Dormammu's the bad guy.
He has that one great moment about, when he has that little Strange back and forth with Doctor Strange. It's a really funny little dialogue, but he's just not a presence in this movie.
And we've forgotten the Thor cameo. That is one of the best cameos in the MCU.
What was the Thor
100%.
cameo?
Not in
In
this
the-
movie, but it's in Ragnarok.
Oh fuck,
in
Doctor
Ragnarok.
Strange! Doctor Strange is in Ragnarok.
Oh, I haven't seen
Fuck.
Doctor Strange. I'm thinking of Ragnarok.
Wow.
Second movie that he hasn't seen
Fuck,
in
there
the
you
MCU.
go. Like my list, disregard my
You
list.
can tell the difference because Doctor Strange has those big old yellow gloves in Ragnarok for some reason. Yeah. Anyway,
Crazy, man.
There you go.
Crazy.
next up, number 12, big fan favorite, Black Panther.
I actually had this lower on the list.
I had this a bit higher.
Really?
I'm quite surprised it made number 9 on my list.
I remember
Mine was
watching
11, so a little
this,
higher.
and I can't remember if I was cooler than you two on this film, but I was definitely cooler than most people that had seen this film.
Mm.
Because there was I know Marvel. I said this from the beginning. Marvel was fucking genius. They hit this movie at the right time, and they had the right marketing for this film. They were brilliant with how they released this. But in terms of an actual film, visually, very distracting. I found this.
Certain parts,
Yeah, I would-
distracting.
I would say pretty far between parts as well. I think some of the stuff visually in this is really
The
striking and
waterfall
beautiful.
stuff's
Yeah.
really cool.
Waterfall,
and like the
sorry,
opening
what?
sequence, the waterfall sequence.
And
where
Baku's,
Batman-
in
waterfall
Baku's
sequence
like
was
ice
bad.
place.
I thought it was pretty good.
I go back and forth on it. It is really
It's
reminiscent of the
pretty bad.
the kind of Ragnarok-y green screeny stuff, but
Yeah.
there is something kind of painterly about just the color scheme throughout this whole movie. I don't know.
The color, like the design in this film, I think is really cool. And there are some really stunning scenes in terms of that incorporate that, like the savannah with the purple sky. And
Oh,
I thought
yeah,
it was fucking
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
gorgeous. But yeah, there were a lot of scenes in this that I just found very distracting with how wonky they look, and even that end fight scene.
Oh yeah, it
was
looks
such
terrible.
a disappointment.
But what about regardless of that?
regardless of the visuals, I thought it was a really solid film. I quite enjoyed this film.
This for me is one of the most emotionally invested I've been in a Marvel film. Like I think about Chitala, thinking about his dad and that relationship. Like this is very impactful for me. And
that scene where he goes,
yeah, even the flashback sequence which kicks it off and how that all resolves. there's some really interesting stuff in here, and I think, on that emotional character level, this pushes it above and makes it, just a little more special than other MCU films.
One of the best moments of this film, I still think, is Warmonger when he has his flashback with his father. Or sorry, Killmonger. Sorry,
Warmonger is a different MCU character.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
No, that's Ironmonger.
Yeah, we're going to start this podcast all over again.
Yeah. No, it's Killmonger when he goes back and he has his little flashback with his dad. That is powerful.
Yeah,
I remember seeing that on my first viewing of this movie and just being like, "Wow, this is kind of a new level."
And he's a killer. He is a killer villain. One of the best villains. I mean, Black Panther. It really dropped for me. But when I was building this list, I was like, that is an awesome movie, and it needs to be higher up the list. Where did you guys have it? You had it at 11, did
11,
you say?
yeah, so just higher than that.
I had it at 14.
Cool, okay. Similar-ish spot.
Yeah, no,
around that 10
it's a movie
spot.
that, for me, sits kind of squarely in the middle. Like, and as I said, again, all these movies are movies that I will happily chuck on.
You like these movies.
I really like Black Panther. But there's a lot of movies that I think are better.
Yeah, I was so impressed by how strong of an ensemble piece this was, considering it was an introduction for so many of these new characters.
So disappointed they killed Andy Serkis in this, though.
Oh God, he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I can't believe this movie had like the two best MCU villains in it.
Yeah, that was killer.
It was killer,
literally.
Yeah,
like he died.
But on the flip side, I still can't get the feeling out of the back of my head that T'Challa's just not that much of a character. Like he's very
not.
like I like that he's not another one of the kind of quippy ones like everyone else, but I just don't feel like there's that much else to him. On the other side, he's a big old stoic, and
he's only had 7 movies, all right, mate.
He hasn't.
I like that about him. It's refreshing.
It
I
is.
think it's like, he's a little more humble. He's a little more quiet. He's a little more thoughtful. I like that, and I think if we got another Captain Marvel quippy. Yeah, it wouldn't work.
Do you remember what the moral
agree.
of the story was?
And there's more, and hopefully they explore that and they make it work.
Do you remember what the moral of the story was? Like, what was his?
Don't be a
character arc?
Killmonger.
Do you remember that?
Don't commit acts of war against the world.
Don't believe that your dad's going to be a mad dog.
Yeah,
I
like
love
that. Neither of those is correct.
I think
I love the tack they took, which was something they really had to address in a movie about a super secret technological nation that is hiding themselves from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Which is that is the wrong thing to do. And I love that they introduced that to the hero through the villain. And they had the villain actually
had the right
bring
idea.
change to the hero's point of view while doing it in a terrible way. So he wasn't right necessarily, but he had an impact on the hero that will move going forward. Even if the MCU is never going to address any of this, because remember the post-credit scene where it's like, we're going to reveal ourselves to the world. And I haven't seen anything from that. Obviously, a lot of stuff's been happening on planet Earth since then, but still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there. It's the reassessment. It's like everything you knew that was great, like crumbling and rebuilding that. That's kind of the arc of his character.
Yeah, and this really kind of benevolent seeming character of T'Chaka. Like, I love that the last interaction they have pretty much is him like just telling him off. Like, you guys all suck. This is wrong.
Well, and then I felt weird in that scene. I wasn't sure what they were trying to get at there, or what he had done that was that. Like, I wasn't really sure where the storyline on that was going.
I thought it was a brilliant through line that they'd closed themselves off to the rest of the world and people were out there dying.
No, I got
and
that
suffering.
part, but I was trying to like. No, I think we could probably talk about that all day. This is probably maybe even just my confusion around it. That something in that didn't quite click for me. But what really sold that movie was, Killmonger. I thought that the through line on that was really cool.
Next up, we have George's favorite one, number 11. Do you want to say what it is, George? Your favorite MCU movie from recent times?
So scared.
Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Ooh.
So, of course, the final entry in the Infinity Saga, the most recent MCU film.
Yeah. Who had this higher?
I had this quite high.
I had this very high.
I had this lower.
Yeah, you've said that you've probably set this down. I thought that whilst my review for the film was fairly like that was a good MCU film, wasn't great. I like the direction they're going in with sort of segmenting up their market and building, Spider-Man Far From Home feels like more of a teeny film. I like that. And I liked what they did with Mysterio. I like the final action sequence. Didn't love everything with Mysterio. I should make a caveat there, but I like the final sequence and the playfulness with the drones and all that stuff.
I have a feeling the only reason that this is so far down my list is because, as I said, I'm basing this off what do I want to watch right now, and that's the most recent film that I've seen. So there's other films that I would probably rather put on right now, just because I haven't seen them in a while.
I was very specifically not taking that approach because I was like, I don't want to put Endgame last because I'm like, I don't want to sit through that 3-hour movie right now. I want to put that a lot higher than that. Is what I'm saying.
I definitely get what you mean. There were some exceptions that I was trying to like pull out, but
So how do you feel about Far From Home? You didn't like it this high?
No, like literally the only reason that I think I ranked it that low is because
so recent.
I've just seen it. Yeah. And when I think about what I want to see right now, like there's a little bit of a nostalgia for some of the older stuff.
I found this movie to be so reinvigorating from an MCU point of view. It was definitely my favorite film since Infinity War, like easily by a lot. So I was just really happy to see one of these movies, a standalone one, make me so excited to see more of that franchise alone. Like I'm just like, I want more Spider-Man movies right now. Like it was so nice to bring it back away from this every character in the one movie thing, which has its own amazing charms. But it was really good to be excited about where they can go forward from here.
Yeah. And this movie had a surprising amount of for something that felt relatively low stakes. Or not? Yeah, it felt low stakes. I know that it was the fate of the world and all that kind of shit. But it felt more.
It was only the fate of one world,
local and that. It had a surprising amount of effect, I think, on the overall MCU. In some really drastic kind of some of the stuff that happened after the credits is pretty dramatic. But even just where you kind of go off from the end. So
also really dumb title. This is not very far from home for him at all, relatively speaking. Well, he's been on the other side of the universe. I really hope they keep jamming home into every Spider-Man title, like all 9 of them. Says home in it.
Not home.
Not home. He's just not there the whole movie. It's a door not being answered.
One's going to be welcome home.
Peter!